Welcome back to another episode of The Dump. I'm joined by lovely Torah Bride. Torah, who have we got on The Dump tonight?
We have Charles Beckinsale, park builder extraordinaire.
And Ryan Tiene, pro rider extraordinaire, and much, much more. We are diving super deep with these two guys. They have an intertwining story and kind of a really beautiful path into where they are now and where they were 20 years ago when they were grommets. So really excited to dive in deep with those guys. Tune in and let's kick it off.
Snowboards come down the slope and they're dangerous because they're just like a missile.
Sean White's there. If you helicopter in here, bang your mom and your girlfriend, and then set your board on fire.
Okay, welcome back to another episode of The Dump. I've got some very, very special guests today. I've got my lovely co-host, Torah Bryant.
Hello.
Torah's joined me on this adventure so far, and it's been fun. It's been really fun.
Good
And
chats.
great chats. And we're really excited to chat to today Charles Beckinsale on my right. Charles is an icon in Australian snowboarding and globally as well. He was a pro rider from the get-go and then kind of transitioned into terrain park building. And now Charles is one of, if not the most kind of glorified terrain park builders in the world.
That is good, Richie.
Heavy intro.
And here comes the disappointment.
Yeah. And then to my far right, we've got Ryan Tiene. And again, you two were kind of, in that same generation. And Ryan was a professional rider, the same as Charles from the get-go. But then Ryan kind of took another path and he went real pro. He turned pro for DC. What year did you turn pro for DC?
2003 maybe?
2003. And Ryan has put together...
Oh no, I'm way off. 2010.
Wow, that's...
10.
I started snowboarding in 2003, so straight to the protein.
Anyway, Ryan has pulled together a fleet of incredible video parts. He's graced the covers and pages of Transfer and pretty much every snowboarding magazine that's ever been in existence. There's not many still hanging around, but Ryan was the kind of icon of Australian pro snowboarding. You dabbled in comps a little bit. You did Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean,
You
at
won Star Wars.
the beginning of my career, it was pretty comp heavy.
Yep.
I won Star Wars in 2005.
Yep.
When I was 17, and that year I basically won every open comp in Australia.
Boom.
And then
That was a hell of a run.
yeah, it was a good time.
Was that Omatic?
I remember when you started to blow
Omatic
up.
days?
I was on-
Before Omatic.
I was on Sims.
Sims days.
Rusty and Sims,
I was on
think.
Sims, Rusty, Etnies, not 32. I was on Etnies just for boots, Dragon. Yeah,
Cool.
Full switch up from there, and I was on and then I switched to DC boots,
Yeah.
and then the story goes on.
Well, anyway, I mean, we've got two of the most iconic snowboarders that have kind of, you guys have spent a lot of time in Australia and you've spent a lot of time in New Zealand and you guys have, done solid time overseas. So really excited to talk today about, getting an insight into where you guys hailed from. I know that a lot of people listening probably don't know, and a lot of the younger listeners don't really get that insight. And then kind of you guys went off on two separate paths, and I think they're two paths that now Australian snowboarding is benefiting from so much. And yeah, I mean, I'm super excited to chat. So let's dive into it.
Well, yeah, I mean,
First.
Charles, you can start. You're a few years older than me.
Well, I was gonna tee it off. I've got a great little, I've got
Segue, man. Go.
All right, we're gonna segue.
Take it away. Take it away, Richie.
So Charles, where'd you guys come from? Because I don't even know where you originally hailed from.
Yeah, so I guess Ryan and I have a pretty interesting story. We're like coastal kids. I came from Foster Tuncurry. We lived there until I was probably 13 years old.
Yep.
And then we started coming down to Jindabyne for the winters. I was lucky that, my mum, she was a single mum, had my sister and I, and she liked to take chances and do some pretty untraditional things. So she wanted to come down
Sounds
and
like a legend.
Yeah, back that.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. People who are outside the box are far more fun and interesting, I find.
Yep.
But she ended up taking us down. First season we lived at like Pat's Patch, which is like an old caravan park out towards the station, pretty ghetto. And she'd ski instruct, and my sister and I would we got like old rental snowboard gear from the ski sales and stuff. And then we'd hike up the access trail to Threadbow, and that's kind of how we got our start.
What year is this? How old were you guys?
I was 13 years old. That was a long time ago. I'm 36 now.
So,
Wow.
so you used to hike up the kind of cat track that wraps around Threadbow to get to Merritt's?
Yeah, the one with all the dope whoopties. But yeah, the one you're not supposed to ride. But yeah, we used to hike up there with like a backpack full of lunch. My sister and I.
So is that like a sneaky thing, or is that the only way up?
We just didn't have lift passes, and Mum was on a ski instructor wage, and we
Yeah.
lived in a caravan, so we couldn't
So you-
really afford them.
Couldn't afford lift passes.
No.
You poached riding up at Threadbow by walking around, like walking up the cat track we were talking about.
Someone should
That's a bit of a war.
Someone should test it now. Just saying.
That is a good
I didn't
walk.
check passes on that because it's like, and it was the park, so it's this hot lap.
I was going to say once you're up there, they're not checking passes because you
Yeah.
have to get the ticket.
I'm sure it's
from
different
the first lift
now.
up. Yeah, a little different now.
A lot more motivation.
I don't think
tickets
it
are
is.
getting towards
You can still
200.
get up there.
I mean, yes, it is.
Yeah. But yeah,
That's really cool. So you were 13 when you were doing that?
yeah.
And Amanda is your sister.
Yeah, my sister Amanda's like
Younger?
Yeah, younger.
Yeah.
She's probably your age, right?
Is that-
Yeah, couple year. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
34.
She's 3 years younger than me, and yeah, I guess she rode a bit with Torah,
Yeah.
and I rode a bit with Torah's brother Benny, and yeah, it was kind of cool. They were like the local Kuma people that were absolutely extraordinary. I mean, Benny was always like an eye catcher for me. I'd see Benny ride the pipe at Perisher and rock up with his like crazy zebra pants, and you're like, who the fuck is that?
Zebra pants, afro with a comb stuck in that fro, maybe.
Yeah, he was wild, but
What-
he blasted.
What was the, like you're riding Cruiser Terrain, but what year would that be?
Man,
If
I
you're
would say like
13.
98 maybe.
So what was the
Wow.
setup like in 98? Like
Let's just say it's
what was
kind of
terrain parks in Australia doing in 98?
not much, dude. Like, I mean, we definitely had a lot of passionate people involved, like you always, do. Back then it was like Matty Gilder and Damon Haler, and that's
Yep.
what got me into it. It's like these older guys that I really looked up to as riders were up there pretty much riding all day and doing a little bit of shovel work and getting paid to build shit they wanted to ride. And I was like, that's pretty sweet. So,
Yeah.
So seeing that at the beginning, was that kind of something that you looked back on, like when you were kind of morphing your career was morphing into something else?
didn't really hit me at that point. It was just like I want to ride every day and get sponsored and go overseas and
Yeah.
get travel budgets and stuff. So I was like, I was kind of that annoying kid because I would ask, like, not out of a status thing, like, hey, I want to get sponsored and put stickers on my board. I was like, I'd see Damon and Whistler and stuff like that and think like, wow, if I could maybe get sponsored a little bit of money, I'd get an airplane ticket. And I was like working at McDonald's and stuff when I was like 14 to like pay for snowboard stuff. And I was like, if I get some sponsors, maybe I get some help and get overseas and ride. And that didn't happen until I was like 18. But yeah, back then he was like, chill out. When you're good enough, it'll come to you. So I just like would lap with those guys and go build kickers
Words
with
of
like.
wisdom. Hey?
Yeah, that is good words of wisdom. I remember when I was a kid, I think it might have come from you. It was like, don't go out and hustle. Like if you're good enough, or if you're doing the right things, it will come to you in some way. I mean, I think kids now have to hustle quite a lot, but yeah, that is.
It seemed like I mean the industry now feels a bit smaller. Like it doesn't have the support it used to. Like financially, the sponsors put in more. Like there were people had proper travel budgets. Like I said, like Ryan went proper pro. I was like Aussie pro. Like we had this New Zealand bubble where it was like, I think it was like 3 mags between the two
Dude,
countries.
it's humming.
And we had like, a couple of productions, and like I would always just like make it my aim to get like closing part every year.
Yep.
And I was like, you get closing part, you're going to get the travel budgets. And sure enough, like I could live overseas and, ride all season without really working. And then when I came back, I would work park crew, because it was like not the time that you really shot or did anything.
Yep.
You would just be shredding and having fun, and
Still on the mountain.
yeah, just like snowboarding, doing it without the other stuff. But it just seemed like, there was like a pathway. You'd do the comps, place well, you'd get a chance to film, or someone would notice you. You know, like in my case, it was like, Ryan Gardner and Jake McBride and stuff.
Yep.
And they would just be like, that kid's kind of cool, and, he's ripping. So they'd give you opportunities to come and build jumps with him in the backcountry. Because back then, you couldn't hit a jump that was over like 25 feet in the resort. You had to go build it. So we would all go out and build these like fucked up looking kickers and send it.
I mean, I want to really get into that in a little bit because, I mean, I'm really excited to talk about what today, like what you have to do to become a pro snowboarder and what you guys used to have to go through to get the eyes on you. But taking a little step back, Tiene, when this was all going on, where were you? Are you younger or older?
So this was 98.
I'm younger. I'm 3 years younger than
3
Charles.
years younger.
So I'm 33 at the moment. Turn 34 later on in the year. But I was the same age as Amanda as well.
Yep.
So I met well, if you want to go back, originally I was born in Port Macquarie.
Yeah.
And then my mum and dad split up in Jindabyne, going to the snow. My mum stayed here. My dad went home.
But your parents split up when they were in Jindabyne?
In Jindy, in a caravan.
Like a holiday trip?
Dad was doing the season. He was a fitter on fix the lifts.
Yep.
And and then it was just split up. I'm not sure the full details, but it was over. We used to live in the caravan park down the bottom there. Mum decided to stay here.
Yep.
And Dad went back to Port Macquarie. We stayed with Mum.
Cool.
So I grew up in Jindy basically until year 7.
How old were you?
4.
4. Okay.
So
So you went to primary school in Jindabyne.
primary school in Jindabyne. There was no high school here at the time, so I went to Cooma for year 7.
Yep.
Monero High? Or?
I played footy with your brother actually. The Piglets.
That must have been terrifying.
That would have been fucking heavy.
Yeah.
What did Benny play, the hooker?
No, he was outside centre. I was on the wing.
All right.
And
You are built to be a winger. Winger or halfback?
yeah, at that time I was pretty quick. I've slowed down in my old age. But yeah, played footy with Benny, snowboarded every day I could, and then what happened with me when I got a little bit older is I actually went and moved back to Port Macquarie and did high school.
Yeah, okay.
And in every third term I'd come back and do homeschooling. There was not much schooling going on, but I
There never is.
snowboarded a lot.
Yeah.
I think the structure of the homeschooling was a little bit different then.
Yep.
I had a few books that I had to sort of fill out, and I was on my way.
Cool.
And then that's when I sort of met Amanda first, I think.
Yeah.
I started hanging out with Amanda a lot. And same thing, I had a parachute pass, but I would go, me and Amanda would hitchhike at like 15 years old from the roundabout down
They
here.
were fine. There was 2 of them.
So-
So.
Up to
Back then, that was totally cool.
Threadbow.
Yeah, up to Threadbow, and we used to like try and go up to the double chair at Merritt's when it was there in the middle, because you used to be able to poach, get on in the middle chair, or we'd walk up. So we'd like try and like sort of hide in the bushes and pick our time, and
No way.
we're going to get onto the chair.
You said you started snowboarding in 2003.
Yeah, to take it back, 2000.
Okay.
Yeah,
So that's
2000.
That's
I
around
started.
2000.
I started in year 7.
Yeah.
So I skied before that.
Yeah.
Skied for 9 years before I switched to snowboarding.
Me too.
So yeah, I changed up the game. Actually started with Timmy's brother Max. Yeah, that was the OG crew.
No way.
Yeah.
For everyone listening, Timmy is the producer in the background that's telling us whether we're getting a little bit off track. We've got a few hard fizzes lined up here, so
I'm drunk.
let's cut that one out. So when
Don't worry, I'm
Responsibly
driving
buzzed.
you home.
So you're, a grommet, hot lapping perisher. You're hiking Threadbow, spending a lot of time in the cruiser park. When did Charles and Tiene meet? When was the link up?
Well, I think it was like my sister was either going to school or hanging out with Tiene a lot at the time, and they were like really close friends.
Yep.
And he just basically like would come over, and man would be like, there's this kid Tiene, he's really cool. I think you'd like him. Like, I'll bring him over and he can ride with us over here. And I was like, yeah, sweet. So Tiene just came to Threadbow and he was a lot of fun. So we just shred. And yeah, that's kind of how it all started, I guess.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And how old were you guys then?
I must have been like 17 or...
Yeah, I would have been in year 8 or something, 14, 15 years old.
Okay, cool. And then did you, Tiene, make your way over to Threadbow? Like, was there this divide? You know, Threadbow and Perisher right now, there is like there's a divide. And I mean, like, I think that you created the divide when you left Threadbow, which I can't wait to get into. But there's a full-on divide. Yeah. Did you come over to Threadbow? Like, was that divide there back in the day?
Yeah, it was weird. It was like there's two separate scenes, and like you didn't really see the other people until you went to a comp. And you know, like if you rode Threadbow, you're like, yeah, we ride the mountain, then we go hike and build kickers. And the Perisher guys were like, they had more of a park program there at the time, as Torah and Tiene will tell you. But I mean, they've always been like, in my eyes, like the mammoth of Australia. They've kind of gone with it the whole time and been pretty committed. And they had. Yeah, basically like, you know, tabletops and like, you know, Australian X Games or whatever it was called back then.
Planet X.
And every time they made that Planet X course, all the Threadbow guys would be like, yeah, we're going to Perisher. But I mean, there's always this shit talk like Perisher's flat, Perisher's this and that.
Don't you remember the Sprite sessions
at
Threadbow? Like that was pretty epic. Yeah.
There were some crazy jumps getting built then.
Up above the cruiser, right?
I remember that beast, and Damon was doing like front sevens off the toes or something.
There some years people got bodied. Yeah.
Sick.
It's very experimental. It's just this massive pile of snow with a ramp. And everyone's just like, should be like this. No, it should be like that. And it was just like, this thing's not going to work. It looks insane. And yeah, it was always carnage.
Kind of worked.
There was really good years.
I feel like how me and Charles met was basically I went to Threadbow and started hiking around with Amanda.
Yeah.
And then Charles was an amazing snowboarder he still is, but he was like the guy at the time, right?
Yeah,
he was like on Rusty, he was doing amazing things. I just started following him around just like he was my guide. Okay. I just basically followed him and just like.
So Charles was your influence.
Yeah,
and
100%.
Then you were saying that your influence was when you were a grommet was like Damon Haler.
Damon Haler for me, because I had this like massive crush on Devon Walsh, and Tiene ended up trading up mentors dramatically.
Throw Charles out, go for Devon.
But Devon, yeah, I would have done the same.
Well, I feel like that's what happened. Like Devon was Charles's guy, and then then Devon just became my guy too because I tried to mirror Charles.
Yeah,
and then
because you both kind of mirror as a snowboard nerd. You both mirror Devon.
To a way, and like you never really mimic anyone's style to a T, but we definitely have influence.
No, but in terms of like your approach on a snowboard, and even like where you guys went with it, you know.
Yeah. If I'm doing a back one, I think of Devon Walsh.
Yeah,
and I go and try and do it exactly like if I can.
I think of Gigi.
Yeah,
oh yeah, that's a good one.
It's a nice back one method.
Think of,
I think of Gigi too.
Yeah, who do you think of, Torah? Back one.
Man, I don't even. Ingmar Backman?
Yeah?
Yeah.
I was just a big fan of the no grab.
The no grab, yeah.
The big boxy style, like Charles's drawings that he used to do.
I was such a nerd. I would draw sequences and basically try and draw Devon Walsh. I would draw these sequences that were like as close to the Devon Walsh style as I could get them, of like every trick I ever wanted to learn. Like I even drew like front double tens, back double tens were like the last kind of round of sequences I did, and that was like my process of like learning tricks.
Yeah,
still got those,
dude. You're
a
fucking. I mean, like, I've met a lot of people in the snowboard scene and whatnot, and like you are by far in terms of how your mind works, and when we get on some pretty deep chats, you're a perfectionist to the T. And like when I was a kid, I used like digital snowboard mag. I used to like. When you used to do the illustrations and you used to do the trick tips and you used to draw the drawings, like for me that was my Bible.
Yeah,
and it's cool to hear that the way that you would learn tricks is like you would illustrate them.
Yeah, just like back in the day we had like VHS, so I'd watch like JP Walker's parts when he learnt the underflip, and I'd like be out there trying to do it the next day, like in Bush Ranger or something like that off some rock, If it was soft, but. Yeah, I would like watch things through and analyze the shit out of them. And then I figured it was time to try the trick if I could figure it out in my head by watching the video and then frame by frame draw it on paper. I really like
Beautiful, Charles.
helped me
That
understand
is
it.
like,
Well,
But without being cocky, like I think that mental preparation, like I would put things to my feet first try, like every time I'd like done the work, like visualizing it.
yeah.
And I think I'd see like other riders just go out there and like blindly try shit, and you're like, fuck, they're not even close. Like they're gonna hurt themselves.
I used to do the same thing. Learning backside rodeo, Danny Cass. Just
Yeah.
used to watch him over and over and over and over and over. Watch him do it on the pipe.
What about you, Tiene? Were you a perfectionist or were you more of a Hail Mary?
No, I could do every snowboard trick in my mind long before I tried it on snow. So for me, I had great visualization. I still use it today. So
Yeah.
I can see myself doing. I can't draw, so I have to. I
I
make
can't
movies
draw.
in my head. So I've got great visualization. I've always had really good stuff. So I used to be like thinking of tricks well before I could do them on snow.
Yeah.
So I was usually pretty close to getting them as soon as I actually had a crack. And my thing was too, I could connect tricks really well. Yeah. So like I could do a good front five, so I learnt switchback sevens. Like I could do a good cab five, so I could do a good back five, so I could do a cab seven. I used to be able to link the
All
tricks
the combos.
really well together to like sort of move the way up, and that's I do a lot of coaching now, so I try and like feed that into the kids. Like if I call it a pyramid. So if you have a small pyramid, your obviously peak can't be as high. So if you can work on all the fundamentals at a low point, if you can do all 4 180s, you can basically just grow your tricks from there.
Jesus.
That's exactly
There's-
what Brandy Bright taught me too.
The snowboarding triangle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pyramid.
everything past the 180, there's 2 tricks in that trick, And I think that's like, there's always tricks within tricks, and you have to kind of figure out what relates. And that's why, like, when the double cork shit came in, I was fascinating. I'm like, oh, front double cork 10. It's like a, front cork 5 into a switchback cork 5, and you're like, I can do those in my sleep. And then as soon as you tried and put one together, like it was just like there.
Yeah.
And I think that's like the thing is like understanding, body mechanics and all that stuff. But I mean, the
So-
airbag's going to be fun. For the kids now.
Understanding your brain now, Charles, it connects the dots for me as to how you are such a good park builder. It's mathematics.
Yeah.
It is like seeing these shapes of the jumps, making them line up perfectly.
Which is kind of, yeah.
And I'm like, whoa.
It
that's
sounds really bad though. Like it sounds like really not very technical at all when I say this, but like a lot of the time I don't know the angles. Like,
You don't need them, you
of the
feel
jump.
them.
Well, yeah, like I'll be winching and landing. I'll be like, this is like 35, 36 degrees. I'm going to make a takeoff around this. But like, I'll know what looks at that angle
Yeah.
Yeah.
from experience. And then like people go, what's the angle? I'm like, I'm not really sure. It's in this range. But it's like, yeah, it's more of a feeling. And, driving to the side of a jump, say on Front Valley, you get a good side profile of the jump when you build it. So you just drive all the way away from it. On the side, you look at it and you can kind of visualize someone hitting it and the trajectory they're on. And that, I think, is what makes a good jump builder, not someone that sits on a computer. I think that's the problem these days is everyone's like, I can Google sketch up this whole park. You're like, great. Like,
Well,
I think the art's lost.
get
And
out
sometimes
there.
the numbers are wrong.
you
know?
might.
Yeah.
We're actually in Charles's beautiful house,
It
by
is
the
an
way.
art.
I didn't
Oh,
say that before, but you might kick me out after I say this. But I was looking for something to write some show notes on.
yeah.
And so when you showed me your office, I was like, oh, you might have a pad and a pen. And I walked in and I pulled out your pad and they were just like, I don't know if it was top secret, but there were all these sketches of features and everything. And
Oh, yeah.
I won't leak them, but I don't know. I just think it's beautiful. Like you take pride in the, in your practice.
Yeah.
And-
He's an artist,
Yeah.
can we say?
I used to carry a book. This is kind of nerdy, but I used to carry a book with me in my backpack every night. I'd go to work, and I would sit there in the cat. And like, if you're building a park, you're like, this feature is going to work well there with the flow. Or like, you might be in the middle of building something and having this thought of a cool feature idea, and instead of just letting it go, I'd like rip my book out and sketch it up quickly so I'd remember it later. Because like thoughts come and go, and
then revisit it.
yeah, and then like
Yeah.
you'd have these park builds where you like got to put in like off the top of your head like 15 features or something like that, and you just like you rip to the notebook quickly and you go right flow wise, like an up rail here is going to work well because the way the hill is aggressive and steep before it, and then you something slower after that, or switch things around and work with the terrain. And you basically had like a pre-ordered menu. You could just go, that's going to work there, this is going to work here, and just like, or even like expand on tricks. You'd watch movies, or for me, I'd watch like handrail parts and backcountry kickers and stuff like that too, and see how the pros were like setting things up and wanting to ride in different ways, and that was kind of like helped me evolve my ideas in a way as well.
So how did you guys, I mean, like, when you were younger, you said 15, 16, that's when things started to take off for you, Ryan?
Yeah, so nothing actually, when I was 16, nothing had taken off at that point. I sort of had some sponsors, but nothing was really happening. Funny enough, I went overseas and lived with Charles and his mum. His mum took me overseas to Whistler. So we did a full season together with him and his sister.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do a front three when I left. So I was 16. I could come back.
That's kind of embarrassing.
I could come back and I could do all 4 nines, I think.
Whoa.
He was insane. I've never seen anything like it.
Was Whistler so you were 16?
Yep.
Was Whistler at that point in time, Whistler was like the pipeline of surfing, like it was the epicenter.
The mecca.
If you wanted to become a pro snowboarder, if you wanted to upskill, you go to Whistler.
Yeah, it was the zone.
Yeah.
And I was only young and my mum and dad didn't want me
Was
to
Devon Walsh there?
go. Yeah.
Devon Walsh was there. I think we saw him a couple times and
Yeah.
frocked out. And
Yeah.
They were dragging their snowboards through the village. I was like, oh, that's so cool. Look how much he disrespects his skier.
Definitely got 6 more of those for free.
But yeah, we took off. I used to work at Rebel Sport, now where First Tracks is. I used to clean boots in the back to make some money to go. Went over, like I said, couldn't even do a front three. Came back, and that's the year when I won Star Wars and everything. And then that following year is when everything sort of took off for me.
Okay. And meanwhile, what were you doing in Whistler? All 4 nines?
I don't think I even got to all 4 nines at that point. I was a lot like I'm a heavier build and a pretty big dude, and if I slammed, I was like unfortunately getting injured for periods of time. I had like shoulder dislocations and stuff regularly. I think by that time Tiene was there. I had like a shoulder brace thing, and it slowed me down a lot. But I mean we had a blast. Like Tiene was like me and Jake Coyer were riding a lot. And then
Jake lived with us as well.
Yeah.
That long ago?
Yeah.
Coyle lived with
No
us.
way.
So this year?
So, and this was Charles's mum was looking after all of you?
Yep.
What an extraordinary woman. Love it.
So
Even
you
more,
three?
hey?
Looking
Koya,
after's pretty
Charles,
loose.
and
Mum
yourself.
was like, she
Wow.
was
And Amanda.
there going
Amanda.
out to like the after ski après spots and like, meeting people, doing instructing shit, and she was having a good time herself. And we
Yeah,
were all
good
just
on
like,
her.
we're just like this little gang of rat packs.
It was pretty good. Charles was 19, so he could drink.
Or you could actually go
But
out.
me and Charles both had dyed black hair, and I used to use his ID.
Yeah.
So we used to go out and and we used to we were pretty poor at the time, so we used to just
Drink still.
hover around and wait for people to like pop their drink down, and we'd just like go and swoop it.
Yeah. It was like, we're like,
Guilty.
you wouldn't do it now.
Guilty. I've done that before. I remember,
Oh my God.
Get it how you can.
And Charles got a lifetime ban from Max Fish. I tried to use the ID, and he's like, and then he went down and goes, "Wait here for 1 second." Drags Charles out, and he's like, "You guys have got a lifetime ban." We're like, "Oh, we just went down the street, went to like Garfield."
Garfield's, yeah.
Like, this place sucks anyway, bro.
So was that your first experience of like,
Lifetime band's pretty
dude,
loose.
snowboarding back, in the, what are we talking here? Like the kind of late 90s, early 2000s.
That's 2004.
Yeah, cool. So like mid 2000s, that was party and snowboard. Like the two went hand in hand. You guys got
We had some times, yeah.
you filled up the pot. Yeah.
Yeah, we did. We partied, but we snowboarded every day.
Yeah. Dedicated.
I think I rode the park every day. I was riding park on power days. I was.
Whoa.
Yeah, I was really.
You don't do all 4 nines
I
without
wanted to be a pro
getting
snowboarder,
after
and I
it,
wasn't
eh?
the smartest kid. I knew that didn't want to go, and I didn't want to be digging holes, and that's what I would have been doing.
yeah.
So I had
You took the
I had
opportunity and you ran with
one
it.
goal, and I put all my eggs in that basket, and I went for it.
This is right around the time of like 50 Cent in the clubs.
Oh, yeah.
That whole first album where it's like, get rich or die trying, and we had that mindset. We were just aggressive. And
It was Obi Trice, remember that one?
Oh, that was a good one.
Are you wearing? Were you wearing headphones like this?
Yeah.
Like over
Guilty.
the beanies?
Yeah, we still had. There was no headphones actually because we didn't have phones that had that. We had Discmans. I
It
think.
would have been
Discmans.
Discmans,
There's
yeah,
a lot
mini
of-
disc
lot of
players.
skipping.
Yeah, it was CD.
Discmans.
Yeah, you couldn't ride with the CDs.
You had 50 Cent Get Rich or Die Trying in a disco
In your jacket.
right in the park.
Yeah.
Fucking dumb.
And
Find
we-
me in the club.
Many men wish death upon me. Yeah, we used to, like, it didn't matter how hungover you were, you'd rock up to that, like, shack jump, and, like, Jake would always be like, all right, straight in. He'd, like, do a cab 7 or a cab 9, and then everyone else would follow in and do the exact
When you
same
say
thing.
Jake Coyer.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we would just, like, doesn't matter how bad the light was, how icy it was, how shit you felt. It was just, like, we're all here and we're getting
Wow.
into it. And it was, yeah, I mean, like, looking back now, you're like, whoa, it's pretty burly.
I did have a few concussions that year.
Yeah, I think everyone shut their pants.
In the
at least
resort or
once.
at Max Fish?
Both. And I did shit myself once that year too.
In Max Fish?
No, on the hill. I did a back 5 and sent this thing so deep, and I just like over rotated. Left butt cheek went one way, the other one still had momentum forward. Tiniest perfect little nuggie came out. I actually thought I was bleeding, so I was like, something's happened here. I put my hand down there.
Mate, we talk about all
Sorry.
types
Pulled
of
out a
dump
nug.
on
Yeah,
the dump.
pulled out a nug. You could probably
Wow.
flush that.
Do you want me to flush
Yeah,
that?
flush that.
Flush the nug.
Please flush.
I just got a like statement. Basically, if you haven't shit yourself snowboarding, you're not trying hard enough.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I have not shit myself
Well, you suck.
snowboarding.
Oh, well.
There's still time,
Yeah,
guys.
there's still time.
Wow.
I have just had a
You might be
baby.
the first. You must be the first person I've talked to that hasn't.
I want to say so much, but I'm just going to stop.
Just don't.
So what Ryan was saying, like he didn't want to be digging holes when he was in Whistler. His head was, I want to be a pro snowboarder. This is my path, my direction. Where was your head at when you were there? Because you were 19, a little bit older.
We were just kind of like, I mean, I couldn't go and be Devon Walsh in the backcountry. I didn't have a sled. So in my mind, I was like, I'm going to be a handrail guy. So I would like go to all the jib jams and Seymour and stuff like that and rock up and kind of win a few. And then every time it snowed, like in the city or the street spots in town, I would make sure I went down there and got it. But yeah, like there was that one year actually, I went to Vancouver for a month when it snowed, and I got like a backflip on a 32-stair handrail, which was like at the time, I think JP Walker had tried it 2 days before and hadn't got it with MacDog, which is like, the guy was like, Jesus Christ, handrails.
Yeah.
And I was like this 19-year-old kid that just got it, 4th try. And then I went and front boarded a double kink the same night, and that was like when Shakedown came out.
Yeah.
And that was like my best day of my life.
Wow. And
But yeah, it was pissing rain.
was
and
there
the
a
photos
photo?
didn't turn out
Was
really
there
well.
a photo of the back lip? I'm pretty sure.
There was, but like
Navy blue jacket.
I think it was like navy blue jacket. It was absolutely pissing rain.
Oh, Richie, mega
Yeah,
fan.
At this point in time, I was, you guys were my idols, so I was flicking through, like, I mean, one thing feeds into another, but yeah, I remember that shit.
Sick, dude. Yeah, well, like Liam Kasker was shooting it,
Yep.
and it was the worst day. Like when it snows in Vancouver, it's followed up by like torrential rain, and we were just like determined to get this stuff.
Yeah.
And the in-run's like falling apart between every drop because it's just like pissing water everywhere. And by the time we got to the double kink, I was like, my boots were squelching, like my double XL pants are just like falling off me, and it was a grind. And like Liam lost his flashes that day because of all the moisture, and the photos turned out kind of grainy because of just how much of a struggle it was for him as well. So I mean,
Isn't that called art? Grainy photos?
You can now. It's like an Instagram filter, isn't it?
It's a front page.
But yeah, like, I just remember that thinking, this is going to be like the thing that catapults me into like North America, and then the photos didn't really turn out kind of the way we'd hoped, and the footage wasn't really there because it was kind of, we didn't have Nugget or anyone with us at the time, and it was like kind of a bit of an urban legend around Whistler and stuff. Like people would be like, oh, you did the 32 stair, and and even like when I went back like 10 years later, people were like, oh, Charles, like did that, and
Wow.
yeah, it was like just like full nerds, like
Yeah.
friends of mine, but it just yeah, it just goes to show, like, if you're going to do something, make sure you've got the right people around you
What's-
to help. And Liam was the right guy, but just that we got skunked.
Oh man,
It's very
mean,
unfortunate.
that's-
It sounds like
I've got the
series of
photos.
unfortunate
They're just-
events.
Not publishable, you know.
yeah. Well, maybe we can throw them up.
Get them on the gram.
Get 'em
Yeah, no, we'll throw them up on this.
Get it
I've
out
posted
there.
3 times since I've had Instagram.
We're doing a
Slowly
transfer
growing
story
light.
about
Every
that
time I
later.
feel them a bit down, just bang, just pop that one up.
The
So,
glory days.
When you guys, you know, you're 19, Teeny's 16, you guys are, you know, kind of starting to blow up in the snowboard scene. What was the scene like that you were heading into back here in Australia? Like, were there guys going out into the back and building the booters? Were there guys hitting street spots? Or were you guys kind of, you know, like you were overseas, you saw that go down, you were spending some time, you know, like in the streets, Teeny, you were riding around the mountain, like, did you come back and kind of bring that in, or were there a few guys beforehand doing that?
Yeah, that year I hit my first handrail in Whistler and got my first published photo.
Yeah.
When I came back, and then when I came home, I'd already made a little connection with Nug,
Yep.
Ryan Gardner, who was doing Digital Snowboard magazine. Charles had filmed with him before. Charles had already had lots of photos at this point.
Yep.
Published, because Charles was the man then. Like, that was his little era, big era.
It was short, and sweet.
And so when I came home, I sort of just got the opportunity to, like, they were just like calling us to go do some stuff with digital. So we'd just go out and build. We were hitting a lot of rails in Jindy. We used to take snow from the hill, take it to Cooma.
Yeah, dude.
We used to hit the ice skating rink in Canberra
Teeny went to Canberra, yeah.
and hit rails in Canberra. So
What,
in the
load up
beginning,
the
I
truck with
was
snow
my video
and-
parts were park and street rails,
Yeah.
and a couple of like backcountry jumps in Oz.
Yeah.
And then it evolved later on.
And was Digital Snowboard Mag, like you guys being pro snowboarders, was that the thing that you saw being like, if I get a video part in Digital Snowboard Mag, that will then push me forward to the next phase? Was that kind of...
It's kind of like the pinnacle, I think, in Australia at the time. Like, because we like before the internet, there was no, you know, you weren't getting Transworld unless you were like really looking for it and trying to subscribe and stuff.
Yep.
So I mean, there was this like I shouldn't say false industry, but like, you know, like a false ceiling, you know, that like the guys that were top here were the best.
Yeah.
But there was like a whole another world out there because there was no internet. It was kind of niche to get your hands on it. So we had this kind of wild bubble here and a good run.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
Tori, you can talk to that. Like, I think it's so cool. Like, when I was growing up and seeing you guys do your thing, it was like, it was so rad that there was a Southern Hemisphere bubble. And I know, Tori, you broke through and you hit the global stage, but like, I definitely don't think that that's there anymore, where it's like, there is just a solid Oz NZ hub. And it's like, I mean, I'm just making up a number 10, but like, there were like some solid professional snowboarders that you would aspire to be like when I was growing up, which was you, Ryan, Torah, the Allen brothers, Gus St. Leon, you know, like there was that pack, which was like, you know, you guys were doing it and then you were going to go do stuff overseas. I definitely think that's lost a little bit now, but I think online and the internet has kind of broken that barrier.
There's a value
Yeah.
to it too. I mean, to go up to Threadbow and Perisher and be able to, like, you know, see, like for me, it was like, you know, Damon Haylers, like Chatty Coles, Andrew Fawcett, like people like that. You'd be like, oh, fuck yeah, that's them. Like, look, I'm going to follow him and see what he does. And like, there's that kind of like cool vibe, you know, like you might spot a pro. Whereas now it's like, I think like a lot of the magic's lost on the kids, you know, like Instagram's just diluted everything so much that.
I don't know, guys. I see the magic. They got Charles. They got Teeny up there. Look at Teeny now.
Dude,
like
I used to, when I saw you guys in the lift line at Threadbow together, I was a big Gus St. Leon fan.
Yeah.
I used to push through people, like physically rip people out of the lift line so I could be the single in your three, you know, and then I could sit on the chairlift. And you probably wouldn't remember that, but like star in your eyes kind of moments, you know, like, and it's, I don't know, like it's not, I'm sure that there are kids that aspire to the pros that are riding around at the moment, you know, like you've got guys like Jai, you've got Troy, you've got Matty Cox, you've got this kind of Valentino, you've got these Olympians, which I think a lot of kids will aspire to. But there was just something about that time period, I think.
I think the thing was we had 3 magazines in
Yeah.
Australia, no other magazines.
Mm.
You didn't have social media, so you didn't really see the other guys, the US guys doing their thing.
Yeah.
So
was
we
a pedestal.
were the sort of pinnacle.
Yeah.
And the guys before us were the pinnacle as well, because you couldn't see beyond.
Yeah.
Where now, in that point, you could get paid and be an Aussie pro, and then once the whole world opened up, teams could shrink because they had the same reach with smaller numbers, and that's a big thing too.
On the topic of pay, because I know that there are a lot of Aussie riders and Kiwi riders out there now that are like, I've got so much respect for them because they're putting their life on hold. Not life, because this is what they're doing, but you know, they're not going
best
to the
life
full-time
lived,
work,
man.
or they're not going to uni, or they're not doing those things. Like, they're chasing professional snowboarding, and they're chasing it for peanuts, but they love it and they're dedicated. And I mean, that's what keeps transfer humming, is that there's that next generation of riders coming through. When we're talking money, what kind of money were you guys getting when you were Aussie pros? Like,
Me,
surely
Well,
you
I'll
can
tell you
dis-
my first rusty contract when I was 17.
Give us the dollars,
Was 15 grand, and I was getting paid 5 grand from DC. I was getting probably about 30 grand.
Okay, a year.
Yes, for that I thought I was balling. I don't know what I spend money on now, but 30 grand then I was
got
like,
you
well,
a
a long
long way back then.
yeah,
That's a lot of drinks at the
That's-
banjo.
yeah.
And I think
Except it
Sweet.
got you overseas for a season.
And Mum was
hey?
still paying the rent, and I was living at home.
Yeah.
and it was all good.
yeah,
Life
you
is
had
simple.
parents to crash with, drinks to steal, you know, life. Yeah, I mean, that was probably around like the 2025
Yep.
at the peak. Like, I would still work on park crew back here, but I mean, you know, you could snowboard and not, you know, and eat, you know.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what's a shame now, is like, I think, you know, when you see ticket prices getting towards $200 and that just being a normal thing, and Airbnb prices being like absolutely insane, you're just like, where's the next kid that's gonna, you know, come down with his mum in a caravan
Totally.
and hike up the access road? There's like less and less opportunities for people that don't have all the backing, you know.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunately, like, now, like, you know, to be a professional snowboarder, you need to have like extreme talent and dedication and be geographically growing up somewhere,
Yeah.
or parents that are just like down to throw money, and it's a hard path.
Yeah.
And even the national teams and stuff are pretty hard. Like, they'll support to an extent, but I mean, as Torah can probably attest to, like, you know, from the Australian side, you basically have to make it on your own before you really get too much help. But yeah, I mean, I think now, like, things are starting to look a bit better. There's like an airbag happening over in Sport and Rec, and they're doing a development size airbag as well. So, like, you know, the kids here that have like a small season, you know, where you can probably ride a big jump, say a Parish or a Threadbow for 2 months a year, you got that out there to train on all summer, and, you know, it does level up the playing field a bit for the Australian kids, and I think that's
The game
really good.
is definitely changing.
Dude, when you guys talk about having to hike up a cat track to go ride a shitty setup in Merritts, and you guys have both made, you know, not just careers, but incredible careers out of snowboarding, and you still are, you know, like, feeding off snowboarding. The setup the kids have now and what you guys get, like, what they go into is incredible. Like what Torah was saying, like,
Yeah.
you know, the new airbag thing that you were talking about, you know, there's all these different pathways. Like, I think there's so many different ways now for kids to get into it. Do you see that also being a bit of a downside? Like, you guys obviously grew up with grit, and Tiene knew that he didn't want to dig holes and be a labourer, and Charles, you, I guess, was somewhat in the same mindset. Do you think it's getting handed on a platter to kids and then they kind of lose it a little bit?
I mean, yeah, it's a bit of a touchy one, because I work in
Let's get touchy.
in the snowboard community with a lot of parents that have a lot of money and some that don't.
Yeah.
And what I try and do to the parents that have a lot of money is I almost ask them to get their kid to get a job and contribute a little bit to the funds that they're giving to us to go on the camp.
So, yeah, just for listeners, Brian's talking about his snowboard camps that he runs.
Yeah, so I do snowboard camps. We're an Australian pathway program. We do, before COVID, we were doing lots of camps overseas. Now we're doing one right now. I'm still in my snowboard pants. We've got a camp going on at Threadbow. So yeah, you know, it costs a lot to travel overseas and
Yep.
to do these things and hire coaches and staff and house mums and houses and cars. But yeah, it's an expensive route. So what I try and do is a lot of these kids that sort of have it pretty well off, I sort of almost try and get them to contribute a little bit. So when they get there, they've actually put some money towards it and they're ready to go. Otherwise, it can feel like a bit of a holiday for a lot of them.
Yeah.
And they can waste a lot of time. But
Yep.
if they're committed money-wise, they're definitely they're hungrier. And I feel like it's the same in a lot of sports. You see a lot of people coming from, like me, for example, it was the only option. I couldn't fall back on mum and dad. So that was what was happening, where I feel like today sometimes you can, if you have something to fall back on, sometimes it's a little easier to give up.
Totally.
I want to know more about your journey hitting the big time, because you did some pretty big time things, Tiene.
Yeah, well, that sort of came back to 2005 when I won Star Wars, and then I filmed some video parts in Australia, Digital Snowboard magazine, and then I got the opportunity to go to DC to New Zealand, and we were there, and Ken Block showed up with his car.
Oh fuck! That
this
just
shot
that just
is like
blew up on
infinite.
Instagram a few days ago.
Yeah, so Torstein just did his microdose episode.
The
too,
Absinthe
so-
Films
Yeah.
one, yeah.
Yeah, I saw that pop up, and I put up a photo of Ken Block nearly smoking me in the car.
Except he's very precise.
He didn't mean to be that close, for sure.
Didn't he? Okay.
And I was like, he's like, I'll be over there, and I was like,
Okay.
just pretend like you're raking this feature, and I was just mucking around. And I just turned around, and he was like,
Oh, when he did the whip.
yeah.
So is that what they do with the new kid on the
Yeah,
team?
I guess put him in danger and just see what
So
happens.
who was?
See if he can stand still when you play chicken with Ken Block.
Just centimeters. It's like, it's nothing.
Who was like when you went over there? That was your big break.
Yeah.
And who was on the DC team at the time?
So that was Eddie Wall.
Yep.
Torstein was still an AM with me.
Yep.
Jonas Carlson.
Yep.
He was an AM as well. Who was on that trip that was pro? I think it was Todd Richards was there.
Todd Richards. Yeah.
I think it was Todd, Eddie. Charles is like a bigger. I was there, and Charles probably knows more than me. But yeah, I think it was Eddie. I think Bittner might have been there as well. And yeah, got an opportunity to go over there. Had a few shots in the Mountain Lab 1.5.
Yep.
Went overseas. Actually, the season before I was in Salt Lake City doing the season.
Yep.
And I got a chance to go to the Mountain Lab, and I got a few shots at the Mountain Lab, and then that's what gave me the invite to go to New Zealand, and then had that amazing session with Ken Block, and that video part's like one of the most iconic video parts ever. Not that I was a big part of it, but to this day, a car there doing its thing was
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Pretty incredible.
And that's sort of that was my first international sort of part section.
Yeah.
And then it sort of grew from there.
So I guess do you remember your first published photo in like an international magazine?
Yeah, it was actually in New Zealand at Mount, it was the Nutcracker,
Mount
Mount
Olympus.
Mount Olympus.
Yeah.
I did a front one melon off this cliff, Johnny McCormack shot
J-Mac.
it. And yeah, that was my first published photo in Transworld,
Wow.
which was pretty cool.
And then Charles, when this was all going on, Teeny's going to New Zealand. Where was your head at? Were you kind of getting deeper into the parks, or were you still trying to chase the professional snowboarding route?
I think I'd had the wind knocked out of my sails a bit. I'd had a pretty bad shoulder dislocation. I think it was that year or the year before. I overshot a big air jump we'd built at Threadbow, and my shoulder I totally knocked myself out, ripped my shoulder out, and did a bunch of nerve damage. I was told I wouldn't snowboard again. So
Really?
yeah, so I was
Whoa.
kind of weighing up. Still had contracts to snowboard and was getting paid, and played it down like I was coming back in a few months, but knew it was about a year. So I had my first summer off for a while at that point, and that was where I was like, I'm going to learn how to drive cats and put some energy into that side of it, because I don't want to give up the lifestyle, and I still want to snowboard,
Yep.
even if I can't be at that top level. So I ended up just kind of resigning to the fact that I would just try and keep it local pro,
Yep.
if you will, and keep those travel budgets going.
Yep.
And you go on a few magazine trips a year, but just basically being a cat and start learning that kind of side of things. So
You were working on the transition
Yeah, I was transitioning out. I was keeping it real. Like,
keeping the dream alive, no matter how you can, you know.
Oh, dude. Like, I mean, I'm glad I made the decisions I did, and I was as stoked on park building as I was on riding as well.
Yeah.
So it was an exciting time for me to be able to do both, and I think it was almost like a drug, being able to build your ideas and then ride them, and it was just like this cycle of not switching
The
off.
best drug ever.
I don't know. Hard Fizz is pretty good as well.
Yeah, it is. But
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I just didn't think I had the physical stamina to go all the way.
Totally.
So I kind of took the turn in the road.
And then Ryan, you just went deep into filming video parts.
Yeah, so DC basically sent me a bunch of DVDs, which is pretty cool. And they said, who would you like to film for?
Fuck off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You serious?
Yeah, so I was in...
You got handed on a platter what snowboard.
Yeah.
You'd like
media
take
company-
your pick.
Yeah, because
You can-
what
a
were
lot of
we
people
working
probably
with?
don't know, you usually have to pay to
Pay.
get into
Yeah.
a video part. So a sponsor would pay, I think it was like 10 to 15 grand for an athlete
For a buy-in.
to be in a movie.
Yeah.
So who'd
So
you
they
choose?
basically, I actually chose Sandbox, and it was probably a little strategic. I didn't want to film for one of the big companies yet. I wanted to learn
All right.
how to ride
Strategy,
backcountry.
I like it.
And I hadn't ridden backcountry yet. I hadn't ridden powder at all.
Is that Sansalone? Was he
Kevin
Sandbox?
Sansalone from
Yep.
Sandbox. So I actually really loved the movie. It was time well wasted or something.
Yeah.
Was it time well wasted? And Andrew Jeeves was in it, and he frontboarded that triple kink. And I loved that movie. I was like, this movie's sick. And it was in this nice wooden box, whatever. It came out, and I said, I want to film with those guys, and I want to go learn how to ride backcountry.
And they were predominantly Canadian based, yeah? Like Sandbox was pretty
Whistler,
Canadian.
perfect. I was like, I want to go to Whistler. I know that's where the backcountry, the Mecca is.
Yep.
I get a chance to go out and film with the crew and learn and pay my dues before I can maybe
So
step up eventually into
You were
standard
just
films. Which I
park
did.
riding
Before
this
that, park
opportunity
riding,
came
Aussie
around.
backcountry. I hit a couple of wedges in Salt Lake City, some hips and stuff in spring, but never
Like up
really.
Grizzly Gulch or something.
Yeah,
like
that's right. Up Grizzly
Yeah.
Gulch. Maybe did a couple cab fires or something, and then just went out, and I don't know, powder just worked for me.
Yeah.
And I was just able to land in it straight away. Like it was just like riding park.
Correct me if I'm
Amazing.
wrong, but your first video part that you filmed for Sandbox, you got the ender?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So got the ender part, and ender part is like the part you're always going for.
Dude, I mean,
That
for an
means you got the
Australian
sickest
rider,
part.
Yeah, I was pretty frothy.
Yeah.
I remember that was when premieres were on, and it was like down at the
and that's
banjo.
when
It was good.
skating,
Big
surfing, like it was all competition was almost pushed to the side. It was all about the videos, and the ender was like this thing that was ingrained in my mind. It was like if you're the best snowboarder in the world, you're getting the last video part.
Getting the ender.
And I clearly remember when I got the film and I knew that you were in it, and I was like, where is he? And then you got the last part. And I also remember Robbie Walker got the last part in Transworld These Days. So it was like two Aussies at the top of their game, smoking everyone overseas, taking out last part in Transworld and last part in Sandbox.
Yeah, it was. We had a really strong crew, and Clint was doing really well at the time as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Can't remember the. I think he filmed for someone around Mammoth. I can't remember who. It was. Pirates maybe, but when they were really young.
Yep.
Don't know exactly, but he was doing some stuff as well, which was really cool. So we had a pretty good gang. Koya had filmed for Standard. It didn't end up working out for Jake with Standard. He didn't end up getting enough shots, but there was momentum moving in that space for sure. And
Some of the shots, though, like some of the cliffs he was dropping, were pretty nuts.
yeah, he did amazing. I think Koya just sometimes butted heads with people.
Do we need Koya on for a...
Sometimes that happens.
What's
but-
new? Yeah.
He spoke his mind.
Yeah,
There's some good
sure.
stories about Jake.
Yeah, like that was that. I got that end apart, and then filmed with them again the following year, and then was able to film for Standard Films for 2 years after that.
And meanwhile, you're pro for DC.
No,
No?
I wasn't pro yet. That was 2008. I filmed that video part. 2009, I filmed Shine On, and then 2010, we filmed
you were
Standard
moving and based
films,
in Whistler.
Yeah,
Then,
still in
after that,
Whistler.
yeah.
Still in Whistler. It was the one before the Storming, and then it was TB20, which was pretty cool to be a part of.
Yeah.
So I got to film with TB20. I got to film with some amazing snowboarders
Dude, like
over my time, which was pretty cool.
rewinding back to what we were talking about before, Devon Walsh was the idol. Now you're on the global pro DC team. You're riding with Devon Walsh. You know, like that.
Yeah,
that must have been mind blowing.
So I did TB20, and the next year we did the DC movie. So that was my first chance to get to actually film with Devon. Like, we'd hung out in the backcountry, but we never hit a jump together.
Yeah.
He was still like my god.
Yeah.
So those guys were filming like Polar Opposites and some other stuff, maybe some Mac Dog stuff.
Yep.
And we did our first trip to Island Lake Lodge, which was
Sick.
not Island Lake Lodge. Sorry, we were near there. You're not supposed to say it, but it was Trout Lake, like this spot out in the
Wait,
wilderness.
can you
It's
say
a-
that again?
Trout Lake. It's a pretty simple spot, but no, you won't know where to get. You won't know how to get there. But we were out at dinner, and I didn't know this was coming, and they just slid across this little case, and I pulled it open, and it was the DC ring.
Ring.
So and Deb was at the table. Ika, Torstein was already pro at that point. And the cool thing about DC, it was like voted on from the team for you to become pro.
That's
It wasn't just
pretty
a
huge
business
honour.
deal.
For people who don't know about the DC ring, that was given to the pro athletes only. And
So,
when
yeah.
you saw someone rolling around with a
It was pretty
honker
cool.
of a DC symbol on their finger, it made you
A big deal.
fucking awesome.
Yeah, it was like all diamond out, and
Yeah.
it was
Did that do a
So
few
where-
rounds of the banjo?
I was pretty tight with that. thing.
Where does it
That's-
sit now? I don't see it on there, eh?
Well, I don't wear it anymore.
Well, I got married.
Yeah.
it was on this ring when Danny came along, but no, it's at home in a safe in a little box.
In your
I don't know.
sock
It
drawer.
feels sort of weird now that I don't ride for DC, just to sort of rock it. But every now and then I slide her on, and
The glory days,
Reminisce.
eh?
yeah,
Yeah.
just stand in front of the mirror
Dude,
posing.
DC.
Like,
show your kids. Yeah, kids, look at dad.
Throw some ad posts.
bring it out at the camps just to get some clout. With the
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
then,
I think your kids that actually you're coaching now and giving all your wisdom and knowledge to. I think they need to be have a little education, a little history lesson. Do they
don't-
get that from you?
I don't really talk about it that much. I have occasionally one of the kids will be like, "Oh, this is Tiene." It's crazy how quickly things go.
that's nuts that they don't have that, like it's not tangible for them, your pro snowboarding career in a way.
I think they just think most of them, before I show them, I'm a snowboard coach.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's pretty.
They don't realize
I'm-
what they got.
I guess we've been diving into the into the archive so much. I mean, like, what you guys have both done is that you've both done the pro snowboarding route and you've both dedicated your lives to snowboarding. But, Tiene, you've now kind of taken a path where you're still on snow and you're kind of coaching kids. And we've spoken about this beforehand, but you've gone through the coaching thing prior yourself, and you're really bringing this whole new perspective to it, where it is you're giving them more than just it's lapping and it's push-ups. You're trying to give them a kind of like holistic snowboarding experience.
Yeah, we try and do everything, so it's not just like, hey, get up here at 5:30 and we're gonna do frontside 360s today, and then we're gonna go hit the gym. Like, yeah, that like gym and being strong is important, but I felt like it was going heavily down that path, and I didn't come from that path, so I bring some of my flavor to my camp, which was like, snowboarding should be fun first, and if I don't care if you become an Olympian or you I don't know, I just want you to be a snowboarder forever. That was my
That's really
goal.
cool.
So my whole goal with camps is hopefully you enjoy and you're a snowboarder forever. I don't want you to get burnt out or start hating it because you have these pressures or whatnot. And that was happening, that I saw in camps that I'd worked for in the past.
Yeah.
And I didn't want that for us. I wanted it to be, I wanted the kids to be like, this is what I just want to do forever, even if they're just coming down for a week. Like, and bring their family later on. I wanted them to be frothing on snow.
Do you ever like like, are you ever up there? Because, you know, you've had a career in snowboarding for, what, 20 years?
Probably 15.
15
We'll call it a good
years?
15.
15 years. Do you ever stand up the top there when you're surrounded by the kids and just go like, what the fuck? Like, how am I still here on snow doing what I love? But, you know, it's a different route.
I mean, yeah, I do. But I still like the kid will whip out his camera and I'm first in line still. I'm like, I'm trying to get.
You ain't getting clips.
Daddy's trying to get clipped.
I'm still trying to get
Daddy's
clipped
gonna-
up. Like
yeah.
I'm still clip hungry. I got a problem.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll try and get something. You know? And I'm not happy either. I'm like, oh, we got to do another lap.
Yeah.
Like that's not good enough. I mean, and I think that helps too to see that the kids see that I still love it so much that, you know, I'm not going to be happy with just that saggy board slide or whatever. I got to get that stuff clean and perfect. Otherwise, it's, you know, it's not a count.
It's not postable.
The
Yeah,
kids are lucky to have you, Tiene.
Thank you.
And I think, you know, all sports teach you so much about yourself and life, and the fact, like, just knowing what you do with the kids, and knowing what I've taken from my own, you know, professional sporting journey, you get set up for life. And snowboarding, like, it is about the joy and having fun, and I just think those kids are freaking lucky to hang with you, cruise
Thank
with
you.
you, shred with you, and maybe I'll pay him a visit and tell him everything I learnt about you today.
Yeah, well, you're going to guest
Hype
talk
lady.
on our readiness camp. So
Yes.
we focus a lot on the mental side of snowboarding. I never really thought about it until afterwards, like all the external pressures and the way I thought about myself when people were watching me. And when I became pro, I felt it uncomfortable to ride in the park, and I noticed it a lot in the kids that I was coaching. So
Yep.
we came up with this thing called the readiness camp, and we
Cool.
talk about basically how not to give a fuck about what anyone else thinks of
Yeah.
you.
Zero
Amen.
fucks.
Yeah,
Give it.
and it's massive now,
Straight up.
and that was the biggest fear. Like the psychological fear is more than the fear of I'm going to fall over. It's like, oh, what's someone going to think of me if I fall over? So, you know, we work on both, but that psychological fear one is a big one that we try to tap into.
And you take that into life, eh?
And they're life skills.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, totally.
So it's, yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Gotta-
I
Huge.
think
I definitely feel that though. Like, I mean, for myself personally, when you're in the limelight doing snowboarding, like, you felt this pressure when you were riding, like you can't fuck up because people expect more of you. And then, like, once I was like out of it and just a park builder, I totally enjoyed everything way more because I was like, I had a good day.
Yeah.
You know, like there's no pressure. And I think that's like
I could have
important to
been
remember.
better at snowboarding, and that's what annoys me the most, and that's what I don't want for these kids.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We spent a lot of time partying.
And I guess
Not the partying, just I think for me, like, it was
could've
like
pushed them more.
The
I
mental.
stopped riding and pushing myself in the park because I thought I had to be this certain
dude out in the
thing.
back.
Yeah.
Because you had to be perfect.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So, and that
That's-
affected me, and that's something I don't want for these kids.
Because I think it's really cool, you know, like this story where it's like, you know, you both have come up, you've both taken your pro snowboarding route. Now you're coaching the kids, which we've dived into, and the kids are riding the shit that Charles is building, you know. And Charles, I know you don't like to be glorified, but like you are now, like you have the likes of Mick Morris, you have the best snowboarders in the world following you wherever you go.
I think it's
to
the other
ride
way.
whatever you build.
They take me with them now, so I'm the,
Yeah,
I'm the
Yeah,
privileged
they're
one.
like,
Even-
I
even
ain't
better.
riding
We're
that
in
if Charles
Charles's
isn't
bubble.
building it.
But you know, like you now have the Stomping Grounds, which is, you know, this international training facility that you've kind of created and curated for all the athletes to train on pre-season and post-season. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we did one spring camp, but we basically just keep it in October now in the pre-season. So anyone, you know, like the national teams or the, you know, like the energy drink kids and
Literally anyone that wants to be anyone has to be going there.
yeah, like we built like a 22-foot pipe in a full-size slope style. We had like the
Do you
airbag.
cut the pipe?
Huh?
Do you cut the
I
pipe?
don't cut the pipe. That is an art that I'm not really like. You have
I'm
to,
sure you'll add it to your bag one of these years.
you have to be so obsessed. And we've got like Jeremy Carpenter, who's like considered the best in the world doing
Yeah.
it. And he's like the pipe guy. I'm like the slope guy with like Brandon Dodds, like my mentor. And we kind of work on the slope together. But we all work together and try and bring the transition stuff into slope style as well. But basically, we've been lucky. Like it started off small with the Canadian team and the Norwegian team, and just the US team came second year, but like basically I just told them like I wanted to go because they were all coming to Perisher and stuff and coming to Whistler and hitting stuff I was building, and I was like, what if I like we set up a slopestyle and a half pipe on the glacier pre-season, and instead of like one team having to pay for everything, we just kind of like
Open up to
crowdfund a park with bookings. And they're like, yeah. So they basically backed me and gave me the courage I needed to step into it. And it started there. And then, the next year we kind of just gained traction. And now we're kind of doing about probably 250 athletes through 2 sessions, which is something I never
That's
thought
insane.
we'd do.
And what are you doing now? Like, we're back here in Jindabyne, and I know that, when I grew up snowboarding, I had the pleasure of riding the terrain parks in Threadbow, and then I never thought in my wildest dreams that I would ever buy a Perisher pass. And then you moved to Perisher, and I bought a pass straight away. And
That's the best comment I've had in a while.
everyone moved, and that's when, the parks were firing at Threadbow, and then you moved, and everyone was like, oh, we've got to move with him. And then you did the Front Valley thing for a while, and that really, in my opinion, Torah and I have dived in this in a few podcasts where, there used to be those Aussie Opens, the Garnier Fructors comps, where all the pros would come out and there'd be a freaking hub of pro snowboarding. And as a kid, it's like you're hanging around your idols.
Yeah.
And you brought that back. All these pros started to ditch New Zealand. I guess that was when Snowpark and everything kind of tapered off. And then you came in and you built this hub at Front Valley.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know, how many years were you?
I think
been doing that for?
I think I did 6 years. And at the time, I was really close with Torstein because, we'd been on the DC team together, and I'd gotten to park building, and then he would come to Whistler and ride the park. And he was really passionate about parks as well. So he'd sit in the cat with me and we'd build his ideas sometimes.
So sick.
Just like 2 nerdy kids.
Yeah.
And he came out to Australia and he's like, you see, next year everyone's going to come. We're going to make some sick edits. And I think Mark was there as well. Basically, the contacts I'd had from Whistler and places like that, were just like, we want to come and ride your jumps if you're doing it in Australia. And they came out. And the next year...
Everyone was stoked for the change of scenery too.
I think that's the thing too, is snowboarding has these cycles where everyone's like, snowpark, snowpark, snowpark. Fuck, we're sick of going. What's next? Yeah. And I think at the start, Torstein said it best. He's like, everything has a 5-year shelf life. And he's like, you should just do 5 years at Perisher and then call it, because it won't be hot even if you're still at that level.
Torstein's a wise man.
You ended up doing 6?
I did 6, yeah. but the problem was like anything, I feel like at some point you feel like the pinnacle's come and gone.
Yeah, totally.
And the energy kind of leaves the room. And for me, that was kind of how it felt. I was like, we'd done all this amazing stuff, and then all of a sudden I just felt like I had, Brandon, who was my right-hand guy, didn't come back. I mean, Dougie it was like me, Brandon, and Dougie that were like the trifecta.
What's Brandon's last name, just for the listeners?
Dodds. And
Brandon Dodds and Dougie Graham.
Yeah, so there's the 3 of us that were just heart and soul invested in this thing. And then we had, Jeremy Carpenter is the best guy in the world, cutting an 18-foot pipe, which was just
Front Valley.
insane. And he loved it too. The shittiest pipe cutter.
He did love it.
And we were doing fucked up hours, just so invested. It was never about money or anything. It was all just about building the raddest shit and making it buzz, And yeah, kind of once all that stuff happened, people started going back to New Zealand, and I kind of had less resources at my fingertips. And at the time, Perisher Marketing got complacent about it and wasn't supporting us. We were giving people season passes. I'd put forward a season pass list for everyone that I'd reached out to that I knew was coming, and we supported the athletes. And it just felt like at that time they got too big, and we're like, they're coming anyway. Whatever. We're providing a product, so they can pay for it. And I was just like, man, that's the wrong attitude. Yeah. And these people helped build this, and to see that happen was super disheartening for me. And I felt like my time there had kind of ended, and the stomping grounds had taken off. And I was just at a point where I was like, I'm traveling so much, and I'm away from my wife and kid a lot. And I was just like, I think I'll just take the Australian winters off and go ride Threadbow and just be a nobody and just really enjoy snowboarding again. And that's exactly what I did. But
so where are you at now? I mean, it's winter 2021. You've done Threadbow, you've done Perisher, you've got the stomping grounds going on. You know, we're in your beautiful house that you've just built. You've got your family here now. Word on the street is that you're dabbling with Threadbow and Perisher a little bit still.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a weird one. It just, I guess the borders are shut and they can't get the international builders in, so everyone's really short on talent. And usually I take the winters off and just hang with the family because I'm busy the rest of the year. But yeah, this year I kind of I said yes to one, and then the other one called, and I said yes to them too. So I'm basically the casual guy that comes in when they need a hand building. So I'm here and available and
So are you a
helping.
consultant? Kind of?
A contractor, I guess. you could put it,
Contractor.
Yeah. So just
And
when they need help, I'm
Are
phone call
you
away.
are you like is your mindset like, do you hold on to your skill, or are you trying to pass that down to people in the Australian park building industry to try and, I don't know, keep the parks humming?
I really want to help impart as much knowledge as I can because, I mean, like coming up, I had to travel overseas to learn everything myself from better mentors than I could find here. And I think I would really love to help kind of bring the next generation up because it's so important, especially for Australian snowboarding. And like I want my kid to grow up with two firing terrain parks right next door to each other, kind of like they used to be, kind of rap battling along and pushing each
Bit of
other. And,
beef.
I mean, I'll just do the best job I can every time I get in a cat, no matter where it is. So, I mean, I'm kind of trying to remain as neutral as possible. But,
Okay.
I mean, I just want to see them both do incredibly well and parks thrive.
Well, Charles, you are bridging the divide between Threadbow and Perisher.
Dude, I know Torah was loving the jumps up there today.
I was loving it.
The boys at both resorts have been doing an incredible job kind of keeping things in shape. So, yeah, there's a bright future, and I would love to get to that point in a couple of years' time where I don't even get in the cat back home, but I can just go up there and ride perfect jumps and perfect rails and just with my kid, you know, and not have to.
Nines always.
You got to be doing quads always these days.
I mean, I'm
I
hanging
don't
around.
know. Bring it back to the
territory.
9.
I wish. I mean, that's the dream, right?
Dude, rad dads, come on.
So, Tiene, you know, you've been getting involved in Charles's park projects.
Yeah.
You've been to Sasfay.
Yeah. So yeah, it's sort of it's a good story. It ended up good. It was sad at the time. So I did. I think it was your first stomping grounds. I was over there.
What
year was
What
this?
year are we talking? Here?
2016.
2016.
My son
Yeah.
was born like right before we went.
So yeah, pro for DC at that point. Just filmed.
Still, the ring.
Yeah.
The ring was still attached to
Still
the finger. Yep.
filmed for Wildcats. So I had a good season. I thought I was all good, and I was told that it was looking fine. Everything was gonna get another couple-year contract or whatever. So I didn't really look elsewhere.
Yeah.
And I got a call about a week in. It was Bobby Meeks, was the team manager and famous snowboarder as well.
And
And he just sort of
high
said,
diver.
"Hey, just to give you a heads up, it might not be looking like too good here." And I was like, "Oh, I had a kid on the way."
And you were snowboarding in Sasfay at the time.
And I was coaching 2 kids before this. I was coaching for transition snowboard camps. So for a different company, and I was sort of just dipping my feet into that world.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then a week later, it was just before you did the premiere. I don't know what videos it was at the time.
I can't remember now. But yeah.
That night before we went down there, I think it was a Torstein film, Shredbots maybe, and DC were like, it's done, no more.
What? Just straight up.
They're like, we're not going to renew your
no more.
contract.
No, we're not going to renew your contract. We're not going to reduce your contract. We're not going to keep you on in any.
We're not going to give you a singlet to wear.
nothing.
Wow.
Yeah.
And at that point, I tried super hard to try and jump ship, but at that point, I would have to make a certain amount of money to survive.
Yeah.
Right. So I couldn't do my job.
And you had a
without
kid.
certain amount of
And you
money.
had a kid on the
And
way.
I had a kid on the way. So it was really stressful. I remember I went down and I told Torstein, obviously he was my teammate, and he's like, gave me a cuddle. And, I'd seen Bittner leave. I'd seen Lowry, Haskari leave, like massive pros. So, this happens to everyone.
Same kind of cutthroat, just.
I think so. Like, it's It's and in the end, I'm glad they did it that way.
Yep.
Instead of giving me a small amount and me just being unhappy, and I can
Yeah,
understand now that I run a business why you would do that.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was super heavy for me to accept.
I think it caught everyone off guard too, because your last video part was like a banger as well.
Yeah, I mean,
You weren't
my
stopping.
my last video part, that one, and my last one with Odd Folks that I filmed within I think I filmed it in 24 days. They were my best parts, and I was getting better.
Dude, that
which sucks.
Odd Folks part, we got to pull some footage up of that. That was sick.
Yeah, so
And so inspiring for the kids to see you out there in your element, you know, fucking, you know, no main sponsor, you know, riding pretty much unstickered and like sticking it to the guys that were actually putting down video parts.
You were at the height of your career and your like ability on your snowboard at that point.
I think so, yeah. And so I went and coached with TSC overseas for a paycheck.
Yep.
So I did January, February. So I missed out on like the 2 months I would usually be filming for. And I said, I'm going to go with Marcus and Timmy Laidlaw and Jai to Whistler. I'm going to rent a sled. I went backwards, obviously. I had no money coming in. I just spent money to make this last video part because I just didn't feel like I didn't want them to give me the end call.
Yeah.
I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it myself.
Yeah.
So I went up there, laid down some cash, rented a sled, and just went out there every single day.
Dude.
And a little bit of like hateboarding, I guess, in a sense. I had something to
I had
prove.
no idea about this.
Yeah.
This is
So I was
unbelievable.
going like every day out in the rain, whatever I had to do.
Make it happen.
I only had that short
and
period of time.
imparting a lot of wisdom on the grommets to, you know, like, I've never had a stab at it, but from what I hear, you know, getting your foot in the backcountry in Whistler and all that stuff, like, it's hard fucking work.
Yeah, it's hard, and I was probably a little impatient with the crew because
Yep.
I definitely had a goal.
Yep.
And I mean, yeah, if I could, obviously I proved my point, but if I could go back, I'd probably try and do things a little differently to help.
Make sure Marcus Skin isn't hung
Marcus
over
Skin was
everybody.
fine. I probably was a little short with Timmy.
Timmy Laidlaw?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I felt like he wasn't there where I was.
Yeah,
and the other guys were. So that's all. Just different
Okay.
points in our career.
We've all been in those situations. It's, you know, lots of different dynamics
Yeah.
happening.
So, and then, you know, I do think that the kid on the way was a bonus in the end because I couldn't be selfish
Yep.
and I had to just move on
Yep.
super fast because otherwise your kid dies.
Yep.
You can't feed him.
Yep.
So you can't.
They
right?
live,
You know,
they
is
live
that
on,
what-
they
is that
live
what
on
you
the boom
thought?
for a
Like,
while.
That's what I thought that was like, I need to.
Be all or end all.
It's a lot to process.
And were you
when your
conjuring
life's
up,
changing
like
that.
at that point in time, were you conjuring up in the back of your mind this camp that you've now brought to life?
Well, it just sort of, it was fate, I guess, in a sense. I don't believe in fate, but it's just luck. TSC, the guy who took it over from
You
the
make your
original
own luck,
owners,
Tiene.
the TSC folded. And I had just come off being their head coach.
Yeah.
So, and I saw how I would change what they had, and then I just started turn and burn. It started off small, and like I did in snowboarding, it started off small and I grew it. And then our last camp overseas in Colorado, we had 26 kids
Wow.
come over and do our camp with us, which was
How many kids you got up here at the moment?
15. Yeah.
Cool.
We had to send a couple home due to COVID, but yeah.
They'll be all right.
We got them here, and hopefully they can come to New Zealand. But yeah, so I mean, this is our first snow camp since COVID. So
That's
it's been
really-
been a year and a half.
That's really cool. I mean, like, just from hearing that, it's like you have been through every type of emotion and cycle that snowboarding can throw at you. And I think to have somebody that is imparting all that knowledge onto kids, and, you know, Charles, you know, you've also been through the ringer with everything. You know, you've been at the top, you've been at the bottom, and you've found your path as well. I think, you know, I think that you two are definitely forces to be reckoned with. And just, I don't know, passing things down to the future generations. And I know Torah does the same thing. And I know a lot of people just, when it's time to check out, you check out and you move on to other certain things. I won't name names, but there are a lot of people in,
Just walk away.
Southern Hemi
Everybody
snowboarding.
has a
that-
different path.
and I've got no idea how you could just throw snowboarding away. And I don't know, like from an outsider's perspective, it's beautiful to see what you're doing and what you're doing, and Torah, what you're doing as well, and how it all meshes in. So
I think listening to your stories at the beginning and how you're both like, I don't know, the visualization, the different ways you both did it, to the perfectionist kind of side in you, and the beautiful poetry of your stories, like starting together, going away, coming back again. It's, I don't know, you just like, you're champions in your own sense and like in your own journeys. And yeah.
And you're both really fucking obsessed with snowboarding.
Yeah.
Like I can just, like, even talking to you guys now, it's like any chance to bite at, you know, the microphone, which is unreal. I mean, like, to see that in you now, you've still got the same spark in your eye with snowboarding and the care and dedication. Booyah.
I mean, and
it's inspiring.
this is just the beginning, right? Like, and it's an honor to honor your journeys and speak a little bit about it through the podcast.
It's been
Guys,
epic
you guys
to
are
be
awesome.
here. I just wanted to. I watched a video the other day, and I think it's really cool, and it sort of represents this group pretty well with snowboarding. Snowboarding is fail, 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 succeed, and I think that concept going through life
applies.
We apply it into everything.
Yeah.
So you know that is what learning is on a snowboard.
Yeah.
And just falling, getting back up and keep moving forward is like the element that we all share as snowboarders and skateboarders and surfers in extreme sport. That's sort of what we go through. And I feel like all of us, that pushes through to our careers after snowboarding and in all sports, which I think is pretty cool.
It just gives you a lot of grit, and it's given me like amazing friendships like ours. And I think even just like going through the professional part of it, it does teach you the basics of business, you know. Like I think snowboarding kind of teaches you everything you need to know in life if you pay attention to what's trying to get across, you know.
All right, well, Charles, Ryan, Torah, that was an absolute
Richie.
chat. Yes. Thanks so much for tonight. And Charles, thank you so much for letting us talk in your beautiful, humble abode that you've just recently built. And I just wanted to give a big shout out to Hard Fizz, who have been obviously keeping us well fueled up for this entire chat. Beautiful seltzers, we've all got different flavors. And also a huge shout out to Burden Snowboards, who have been, you know, backing transfer for 10 years and counting. And it's awesome to see some brands getting behind this podcast to help us bring it to life.
And sponsor the camp too.
And the camp.
So keeping it core as well, which is epic. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, Paul and everyone do a great job.
Yeah.
I'm loving that transfer is back, like, and evolving bigger and better. And like you were talking about how like the industry here, like it was like we were in our own little bubble.
Yeah.
There wasn't much else out of it, and hopefully we can, like, I don't know,
Bring that back, baby.
Yeah, bring it back.
Well,
Bring
I
some.
had the first cover of Transfer.
Oh,
So
shit.
it's cool. It's it's really cool to see you guys what you're doing and the push forward, and you know let's make snowboarding great again.
And if you wanna look cool, or maybe not, but we've got some dope merch. So the merch will be
Transfer
dropping online. I think this week, when everyone's listening to this, it'll be online. So
I'm feeling it.
we'd love the support, and you know you can run and represent transfer. Charles, you were going to say something?
I was just saying, like, you know, I'm stoked you guys are doing what you're doing, because I think, like, you know, the local stories need to be told, and, like, you know, the culture needs to kind of be embraced a bit, because I think without what you guys are doing, there's just not that kind of connection to the local scene. And
Oh my gosh.
hope you guys keep doing what you're doing. I'm a
And
big
you know
fan.
what? Yeah.
Well, there was so much culture back in the day. Like when I was, you know, starting, just when it was, I don't know, it felt like it was something. There was a lot of heart. So
And you know the cool
Bringing
thing
it back.
is, it's through your park building and through your camps, there is this new generation of people, seriously, that we can talk about and we can help elevate and build a platform for, you know, like Scotty, Valentino, Tess, like they're 4 people that are the Aussies, they're riding your parks, you know, they've been through the coaching kind of program. They are the best in the world at the moment, or like some of the best in the world, and
we
they're
got
heading to the Olympics,
the
about to
Kiwis
potentially
too.
land on the podium. Then you got Zoe, you got Carlos.
Zoe's
I
insane.
just feel like there's this huge revitalization of
Tiene.
snowboarding coming through. I was kind of in the dead period.
Tiana and Maddie Cox too. Those guys are like for slopestyle. I love watching those guys
Dude,
too.
they're
Yeah, and
insane.
Maddie.
I think it just took us a while to figure out our feet during that middle section. I think it's coming back now. It
Yeah.
should be good.
So yeah, I mean, thanks
Feel good
everyone for
about it.
tuning in, and you know we're going to be talking to a lot of those people I just listed off over the coming weeks.
You said
We're
you're
really
doing a New
excited.
Zealand camp.
I am.
That's the
We're doing a
plan?
New Zealand camp in spring. We're there for a month. So during the school holidays, September 17th to October 17th.
Based out of Wanaka.
We've got a house in Wanaka, kids from 12 to 18.
Cool.
Yeah, we've got Benny Mates doing pipe, which is
Oh,
cool. So we got
Whoa.
Olympian coming back. We're
Oh,
making
gee.
a
Love
bit of
Benny.
a push in the pipe scene because I feel like that's something we're amazing at, but we lack development.
Yeah. Well, we touched on that in the.
Well, there aren't really great developmental pathways.
That's what I'm
So-
doing.
Someone should build
Yeah.
a pipe. Just saying.
We tried.
Yeah, who's building a pipe?
I don't know.
Come on, Charles. You've seen him build it.
Nothing's
Just get
coming
in there
back?
and just start whacking one up.
There's a cutter sitting in Australia again. I took a round trip to Canada and back over summer. But
I know someone who has a pipe cutter.
me too.
Anyway, guys, incredible chat, and you know, I think we should all honour this chat with a little snowboard up the hill.
Yeah. Thank you guys for being you.
Yeah.
Thank you for
The
Thanks for
world
having
wouldn't
us.
be the same without you.
And thank you for listening in, and tune in next week for another episode of The Dump.